There are certain flavors that can only be made after withstanding the freezing winds of winter. When snow falls and winter comes, people set up Deokjang and string up fish to find those flavors. The fish hang out in the bitter cold, freezing and thawing over and over and laying itself bare to the ocean winds. When the Deokjang opens, that is when we get to taste these fish, Hwangtae and Gwamegi. It's the busiest time of the year. Injegun, Gangwon-do Province. The Deokjang opens in Yongdaeri Village, tucked in between mountain ranges. This is where walleye pollock is dried to make hwangtae. Deokjang is a place filled with wooden racks used to dry fish. Pollock can only be dried in the dead of winter, when the average temperature falls below -10 degrees Celsius. After another long year and a heavy snowfall, the mercury has dropped.
이거를 활복장에서 이렇게 배를 떼게 가지고 냉동을 해가지고 온다고. 여기다 갖다 놓고 이것을 걸어가지고 4개월 동안 얼었다 녹았다 말랐다 해민선에 이 과정을 거쳐서 황태가 나는 거라고. 참 쪽에 많이 가요.
Walleye pollock is a type of cold water cod that is found in the eastern waters off Korea and in Japan and Russia. They are strung up in the Gangwon-do Mountains and left to freeze and thaw repeatedly to become hwangtae.
대한민국에서 적기가 용대리 지역이 지금 그 황태 말리는 그 지역이 아주 기후도 맞고 봄에 가면 바람도 잘 불고 그래서 바람이 안 불고 이렇게 그냥 말르면 썩어요. 그런데 이 바람이 불면 얼었다 녹았다 하면서 하기 때문에 썩지 않고 그냥 속살이 하얘면서 그냥 참 부드러운 맛이 나면서 이렇게 돼요.
In the early 90s, there were just 3 or 4 Deokjang in Yongdaeri. Now there are more than 20. Yongdaeri has become a hwangtae village, producing more than 70% of all hwangtae supply in Korea. Choi Gwi-cheol opened the first hwangtae Deokjang here. He has been working in the industry for 53 years. He first learned how to make hwangtae after the Korean War, when he met someone from Hamgyong-do, North Korea.
처음에 내가 여기 올 적에 21살에 왔는데 동해안에 고기가 그때 명태도 많이 나고 모둠이 많이 나서 그걸 가지고 팔러 갔는데 상해 주인 얘기가 자기가 원산서 살았는데 원산서 그러는데 노랑태가 나오더라. 근데 용대리 있는 30도 이상씩 되니까 통통한 게 잘 나올 것이 한번 해보자 이래가지고 상해 주인이 자기가 돈을 반대고 나 우리 반대자 이래가지고서 이게 덕장을 시작을 해가지고.
Most people in Yongdaeri earn their living by working in the hwangtae Deokjang in wintertime.
춥지 않으세요? 춥기야 조금 추워도 뭐 그렇게 춥지는 않고요. 할만합니다. 옛날보다는 뭐 날이 따뜻해서.
눈이 오면 눈 털어줘야 되고 뭐 해야 되고 관리해 주는 게 보통 떨어지면 주워 걸어야 되고 참 이게 내가 이거 참 50년 동안을 내가 이거 했는데 이제 다 늙어서 지금 뭐 저같지만 이게 이렇게 힘들어요. 그냥 얼른 보기에는 황태가 그냥 어서 주워 나오는 거다 이러지만 그게 아니에요.
The fish freeze overnight, then thaw during the day in the sunlight, repeating the process for 4 months. Since long ago, Hwangtae was said to be not a creation of man, but a gift from the heavens. They say Hwangtae must pass through 30 pairs of hands before it reaches the table. The women in the village devote themselves to Hwangtae as much as the men.
우리 이렇게 세게 있잖아. 황태는 아까 불려놓은 황태 있죠? 불려놓은 황태 이렇게. 이거 지금 황태국 끓이는 거예요. 네.
It's a simple recipe. When the stock is ready, tofu is added with 2 or 3 kinds of vegetables. This steaming dish was what kept the Deokjang workers' strength up. Hwangtae soup. As Hwangtae grew in popularity nationwide, it began to appear on the table in various forms.
이건 통황태로 하기 때문에 저 통황태 속에 양념이 배들어야 되잖아요. 그래서 손질해가지고 칼집 넣어가지고 양념 넣으려고. 예.
In Hwangtae's hamhap, a recent favorite in Yongdaeri, the fish is cooked whole. First, Hwangtae stock is poured over aged kimchi and pork. Seasoned Hwangtae is added on top, and the whole thing is steamed. The sweet and sour kimchi mixes with the rich flavor of pork and the softness of Hwangtae fish. While the rest of the nation huddles indoors, the locals here spend their days battling the cold. Their lives are somewhat like Hwangtae, treasures that can only be won after long, hard winters. Hwangtae pairs well with all foods. Only pollock that has been frozen and thawed repeatedly in Yongdaeri can be called Hwangtae. In Korea, pollock goes by many different names. Its name changes depending on how it is prepared. If it is frozen solid, it's Hwangtae. Dried crispy, pugo. The name changes yet again depending on the temperature in which it was dried, but all of these names refer to the same pollock fish. There was a time when the oceans off Korea were said to be half water, half pollock, but after uncontrolled fishing, the stocks ran dry. Today, Korea imports all of its pollock. Sokcho, Gangwon-do Province, once famous for its pollock. Here, there is a place that still retains the history of North Korean refugees, like the man who taught Choi Gwi-cheol how to make Hwangtae.
실향민들의 집단 정착촌으로서 통일에 대한 희망과 분단의 아픔을 가지고 살아가는 마을입니다. 원래는 거기가 마을이 아니고 이게 조그만 모래밭 섬이었었는데 6.25 사변 이후에 1.4.5태 때 이북에서 피난 내려오신 분들이 그때는 60년이란 긴 세월이 걸릴 줄 모르고 한두 달만 있다 금방 고향으로 가시게 될 줄 알았으니까 그분들의 초창기 때 거기서 이제 마을을 형성했습니다.
But Korea remained divided, and many North Koreans died in Yongdaeri Village, unable to return home. Their descendants honor their stories and their food.
생태를 하루 정도 이제 물기가 이제 빠지게 말려요. 말려가지고 해야 찌면 안 터지지. 그냥 생태를 이 속 넣은 거 채로 하면은 터져요.
Park Hae-suk sells stuffed pollock called Hwangtae sundae, made with her mother-in-law's recipe.
만두 속처럼 그게 많이 들어가요. 속이 많이 들어가야 맛있어요. 우리 시어머니가 이북분이거든요. 근데 시아버지도 또 시할머니도 이북분이고, 또 제가 3대째예요. 이제 어머니가 이제 작년에 돌아가셨어요. 돌아가시고 어머니한테 배웠으니까 제가 이제 어머니의 대를 이어서 그냥 하는 거예요. 네.
She removes the insides and the bones by hand and finally chops the ingredients for the filling. It's a food that requires a lot of manual work. In Hamgyongdo, people enjoyed stuffed pollock on the first day of spring. A woman longing to greet spring in her hometown again passed on this recipe to her daughter-in-law. There's another food made with the help of cold winter winds on Korea's eastern coast. This is Pohang, Gangwon-do Province, one of the largest cities in southeastern Korea. Pohang in winter means it's time for Gwamegi. The Chukdo market is the largest of its kind on the eastern coast. In winter, it's filled with people looking to get some Gwamegi, and there's plenty for sale, strung up in bundles. Gwamegi is made by stringing Pacific herring or Pacific sorry, repeatedly freezing and thawing them, and drying them in the ocean winds. Pohang produces 80% of Korea's Gwamegi.
11월 중순부터 2월 중순까지가 최고 이제 철이에요.
청어 조인데 청어 요거 아닙니까? 이거 하나 드릴까요? 요거는 생물 말른 거라 맛있어요.
요즘은 진짜 저 꽁치가비보다 훨씬 맛있습니다. 네, 영양가도 많고.
요거는 청어고요. 요거는 꽁치예요.
어떤 차이가 있나요?
요거는 청어로 고기 자체가 청어고 요거는 꽁치예요. 원조는 청어가 원조인데 옛날에는 청어를 많이 했어요. 그런데 요즘 청어가 많이 안 잡혀가 대신 나온 게 꽁치예요. 근데 지금은 동해안에 이거 청어가 많이 잡히거든요. 그래서 이게 생물이 많이 나온 거예요.
차이가 좀 있어요?
조금 차이가 나요.
Gwamegi made with sorry is a bit chewy, while herring Gwamegi is soft. Pohang people consider the latter to be the original. The port wakes up as boats push off from the docks. The waters have filled again with herring, changing the routines of the fishermen here.
청어가 너무 많이 나고, 그리고 또 과메기 철이고, 과메기 용품이기 때문에 뭐 가격도 좋고 이래가지고 청어 잡이를 지금 하고 있습니다. 선지로 많이 잘 키울 것 같은겨.
The men pull up the nets they let down the night before. They are filled with herring.
많이 올라오네요. 물기가 좋아가지고 청어가 좀 많이 나요.
Herring was the most commonly caught fish in Pohang, but like pollock, the fish left Korean seas for a while.
청어가 냉수성 어종인데 수온이 상승하고 해양 환경이 변화되면서 1980년도경부터 어획량이 많이 줄어들었습니다. 줄어들어서 꽁치로 과메기를 만들었는데 2000년도 들어서면서부터 다시 청어가 많이 잡혔습니다.
The boat returns to the port. Herring is a cold water fish that becomes plump and tasty in winter. They are hard to catch, but worth the work. When winter comes to Pohang, Gwamegi Deokjang springs up along the eastern coast. Herring and sori dry in the open air, revealing their red flesh. Lee Son-ok runs the family Deokjang.
과메기는 겨울철에만 이게 생산이 되기 때문에 아무래도 겨울철 들어서서 겨울 끝나기까지 저희들 바빠요.
Unlike pollock, which arrive at the Deokjang already cleaned, herring or sori for Gwamegi are cleaned on the spot. Once they are gutted and washed, they are dried in the ocean breeze.
이거 이제 작업해서 완성될 때까지 숙성될 때까지가 청어 같은 경우에는 날씨가 좋으면은 한 일주일에서 한 8일 정도, 날이 좀 춥고 이러면은 한 10일 정도 걸려요.
Sori are smaller than herring and only take 4 or 5 days to dry. In winter, the coastline of Pohang is filled with the smell of fish that are drying in the wind. As the fish dry, the grease from the intestines seep into the flesh, making it sticky and chewy. When grooves start to appear on the surface and the color turns a blackish red, Gwamegi is ready. Gwamegi is usually enjoyed wrapped in vegetables. There's no special preparation involved. Gwamegi is peeled, cut and served. Pohang people have always enjoyed it in wraps. After Gwamegi gained popularity in the 2000s, this became the standard way to eat Gwamegi. Seaweed, kelp and vegetables like cabbage, peppers, garlic and green onion help to reduce the fishy taste. They say Gwamegi can only be made in Pohang. How did this come about?
포항이 겨울철 북서풍이 태백산맥을 따라 내려옵니다. 내려와서 이 지역에서 적당한 습도와 그다음 깨끗한 해풍을 맞으면서 꽁치와 청어가 균일하게 잘 마르는 조건이 형성되어 있습니다. 그래서 과메기 산업이 옛부터 이렇게 발전하게 되었습니다.
Pohang has the best geography and climate for making Gwamegi. But there is another interesting story about the origin of Gwamegi. A scholar living in Pohang was heading to the capital to take his civil service exams. He found a herring hanging from a tree, tasted it and fell in love. Even after he passed the exam, he couldn't forget that taste, and every winter he would dry some herring for himself. This is the first Gwamegi. In the past, Pohang was the best place to catch herring. In fact, Pohang's growth coincides with the period when herring was abundant and when Korea was colonized by Japan. In Guryongpo, there are streets that preserve the old Japanese houses from the colonial era. Japan made Pohang a major port city to exploit resources from the area, including herring. Japanese people ate herring the way Koreans did. Mugaki nishin, a food similar to gwamegi. In these two foods, so similar on the surface, there hides a painful history of invasion and extortion. Gwamegi became famous as a Pohang delicacy in the 1980s. Starting then, sori and herring were sliced in half and gutted before being dried. But those who remembered the original taste sought whole gwamegi.
원래는 평과메기보다 통과메기가 먼저 나왔어요. 처마 밑에 한 두름 두 두름 걸어갖고 이래 말리던 것이 이게 대중화가 됐어요.
Whole gwamegi is made with fish that hasn't been gutted or sliced. This Deokjang makes gwamegi the traditional way, tying the herring with straw.
이 볏짚을까 엮어 놓으면요 맛이 좋아요.
볏짚은 기름을 흡수하고 그 다음에 고정을 시키는데 꽁치를 고정시키는데 이 끈하고의 차이점이 굉장히 많습니다. 끈은 미끄러지고 이러하지만 또 짚으로는 고정을 아주 잘 시켜줍니다.
They are tied, washed and scaled before being dried. The fish are full of intestines and roe and have to be dried longer than sliced gwamegi. But as the intestines ferment and oil seeps into the flesh, whole gwamegi gains a completely different flavor. Traditional whole gwamegi produced in Pohang was fit enough to be served in royal palaces.
통과메기는 한 15일에서 20일이 걸려요. 그러다 보니까 또 이 내장에서 씁쓸한 맛이 살로 올라가고 살이 부드럽고 연합니다. 그 즐기는 사람들은 이 통과메기를 항상 즐깁니다.
The long preparation means that whole gwamegi can only be enjoyed once or twice a year. It's a bit more difficult to make, but the resulting flavor and texture is completely different from sliced gwamegi. While sliced gwamegi is chewy and sticky, whole gwamegi is soft and moist. It seems more like canned fish than jerky. It can be cooked in a variety of ways as well, seasoned and grilled or put into stews. The deep, rich flavors produced by the cold winds make Korean tables even more abundant in winter. Carved and cleaned, fish must hang hollow during the long winter months to be reborn as a precious delicacy. The harsher the weather, the richer the flavor. These are foods that contain both Koreans' wisdom and their painful history. It's winter time and the Deokjang is open. It's time to meet these winter gifts. Hwangtae and Gwamegi.